We're going to have a working lunch now, so please turn your mic off if you're chewing on potato chips especially. Otherwise, we'll start it. Fantastic. Thank you all for showing up today, and that was just a great meeting. I always love it when federal partners commit to something, and as we were walking out, with the commissioner, she's talked about 90 million, so wow, that'd be a huge pump in our project if we could get the feds to start pushing money in. And thank you, everybody, for your comments. It was very, very helpful. So we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call. Oh, Kim's running real fast right now. She got to move her lunch. To her side. Roll call.
Yes. Getting there. Altough. Bigwood.
Bigwood is absent. This is Jeremy Schuler, alternate with
Thank you.
Northeast.
Thank you, Jeremy. Bonesack.
Here.
Carlsrud.
Here.
Erdman.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Mahoney.
Here.
Nilsson.
Here.
Schmaltz.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
And Veen. Is he online?
I know Ken's traveling. He may or may not be on.
Yeah. Associates, we have Dardis, Lambrecht, Mo, Siegert. Nope.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 13, 2023 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Ken Veen's out today. Mortlock, the Technical Advisor Committee, Operation Planning Subcommittee. Dan, are you ready? You can go either one. It's shorter walk over here.
Thanks, Commissioner Mahoney and members of the board. I'm Dan Portlock, the chair of the Operational Planning Subcommittee. So we've had several meetings over the past year and more recently in the middle of September, and just wanted to give the board an update of things we've been working on lately. So we've started on a draft operational plan to kind of create a vision for each biennium of the project from the work we've done so far up until the startup of the project in 2032. So moving forward, to give you kind of a high-level summary, the operational planning has kind of been categorized into 5 main groups or 5 main headings. The first one being kind of the operations and assumptions of the project governance, water supplies, pipeline and reservoir operations, and water accounting. And there's a lot of stuff in each of these categories, but briefly, a few examples of the things we're going to be working on is like the different drought phases, green to red monitoring dashboard for the project, supporting Lake Ashtabula water control manual updates, and creating a water accounting software and testing it. So it's kind of like a roadmap of what we want to accomplish in the coming years as the operational planning subcommittee. So a couple other things we discussed is the asset management for the project. The framework for the asset management system has been developed, and we're going to start working on the details of that asset management, where we expect to have several outcomes, which is things like the nomenclature, how to name the assets of the project with such a long pipeline, the hierarchy, what are the most important parts of the projects to the least important, and how are those addressed, and finally evaluating a software for the project. So which software is most compatible, easiest to use, affordable, and has a reasonable learning curve for the asset management. As part of this, there's going to be an operational plan phase 3 task order, which is for the years 2023 to 2025. It's been drafted by Burring and Associates, and they're working through the committee and board process and planning on presenting it at the January board meeting. We anticipate there will be several outcomes of this task order, which includes finalizing that multi-biennium plan, documenting new project components, like I mentioned, developing a draft drought monitoring dashboard, Lake Ashtabula water control manual updates, and predictive modeling scenarios. As part of the meetings, we're also briefed on current construction updates and design efforts, but I think Kip will be updating everybody at this level. But with that, I could open up for any questions.
Any questions of Dan? Thank you.
Thank
Clerk
you.
report. Construction update, Kip. You're going to talk quite a bit here for a while.
We just brought some construction photos to you. Construction progress, I already covered all these contracts earlier. But this is how our spring looked with all the snow we had, record snow in Foster County. And so the first 2 months really dealt with moving surface water around. So we had a slow start. Just another view what it looks like, the Prairie Pothole region. Just wanted to remind you how that looked. Then it started drying up and started getting some pipe in the ground. I really like this photo because it actually shows progress. It shows restoration. And so we're really going to keep track of the yield on these restored portions. Really important to the project, really important to the landowners, and so wanted to share that with you. And then left-hand side of your screen is the Missouri River intake. That is getting green. Can't say it's grass, but at least it's green and looking good. And on the right-hand side of your screen is how it was probably when you guys came out and visited. So things are looking good there.
Al, you had a question?
Where's the actual intake on that? White and
So
center?
on the left-hand side of your screen, that gray circle,
Yeah,
that's the wet well.
that's the structure. Where's the intake?
So if you would draw a line up and to your left, almost up to the corner of the screen is the 1,600-foot tunnel. There's a point up there where you would probably walleye fish. You can see there. That's right where the screen would be. Because I know you're a walleye fisherman and I know where you would go. So. Last picture is just the Cheyenne River. I know you guys have seen some of these, but wanted to bring them back to you. Here, we're just doing minimal maintenance, so we go over there and mow and spray the weeds once or twice a year. Any questions with the construction update? Contract 5B, I forgot to mention, we're at about 4.5 miles of pipe in the ground. So we are behind on contract 5B.
How many miles is it?
9 miles total on contract 5B. Would you like me to move on to the Missouri River intake change order?
Yes.
So tab B in your books, this is the final closeout task order for the Missouri River intake contract 2. So this is the screen portion out in the river. This is actually a very good change order for the owners. This is a deduction. So this is not an increase in contract price, this is a deduction. And I have to get my glasses out so I can't see the number. The reduction in contract price is for $1.4 million. And they're itemized off there, like 8, 9, 10, and 11 are due to standby time for threatened and endangered species that we did not use those. Also, there was no major obstruction delay allowance used, and there was no sediment removal. And the lastly, early completion bonus was not used. So those all total up for $1,466,450. And we'd be asking this board to approve that change order.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? Who says you guys aren't bringing expenses down? What a great team.
I guess I have a question. Did we have any increased change orders through the process prior to this last one now being a decrease?
Yes, I think overall this, I'm going off of memory here. The original contract was 19 million, and I think we ended up at about 20 million. Looking for anybody
Good, you
that
have a
could
memory,
verify
Tom.
that, but. Okay, let me grab my,
I just wanted to
Oh,
make
yeah, right
sure
there.
that, yeah, we got a $1.4 million decrease, but we'd already spent in excess of what we originally had for the bid.
yeah, good question, thanks, Mary. So original contract price was 18.8 million. And through all the change orders, we're at 19.4. Remember, one of the big change orders was we hit the boulders,
Yep.
change of conditions, and there was some responsibility there. You know, we got that reduced, but yeah. For this risk of a project, I think this is looking really well. You could have lost machines under the river and been a different story.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Alta? Yes. Schuler?
Yes.
Bonsack?
Yes.
Karlsrud?
Yes.
Erdman?
Yes.
Johnson? Mahoney?
Yes.
Nilsson? Schmaltz? Schmidt?
Yes.
That is all?
That's it.
Okay. Yep. You're back on Transition Pipeline East, Contract 5D.
So September 7th at 2 o'clock, we held a bid opening for contract 5D. We had 4 bidders. The engineer's estimate was $68,986,800. This is for 10 miles of project with a couple tunnels in it. Low bid is Karstensen Contracting for $61,677,275. We today would be, and also you'll see a engineer's recommendation in your board books from Black and Veatch. We'd be recommending that you go with the low bid of Karstensen. We had conversations with them. You can see that their bid is considerably lower than others and the engineer's estimate. They stand by their bid. They had a good understanding of the project, and so we'd be recommending them. All 4 of these bidders were pre-qualified through that pre-qualification process that Black and Veatch did.
Dave, go ahead.
Any questions with the bidding?
So I'm not overly informed about working with bids, okay? So that these companies are all somewhat equal and approved, why is there such a great variance in the dollars?
So I could only probably guess, because I'm not inside in their war room, but I don't know. Karstensen probably hasn't dealt in, if I just had to guess, they're not in the large diameter business. That's not then their past. They're kind of in that mid-range. They've done some large diameter. It's just not, they don't have a long history of it. And I'm just wondering if they want to get into that market maybe, and they decided, we can get better pipe prices. We feel like they're from South Dakota. Maybe they feel like they have a leg up on dewatering, dealing with the cold weather and putting in pipe. So they hedged their bets, but that's only a guess.
Go ahead, Tom.
So like Garney, the existing contractor that was issued the first 1.5 miles, and then the previous 9.5 miles, they did not even submit a bid? Garney?
Correct. Correct,
Because I suppose, number one, they got to finish what they've started.
correct.
Interesting.
We have heard from contractors that working in North Dakota is very hard. They can only come up here and work for a few months, and then they have to go find out work elsewhere. And so they can actually take a bid in Colorado, Texas, and they can work 12 months. So we have heard a little bit of that.
Yet for the diversion, they're building all winter. It's kind of interesting, moving dirt. So, do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second, Schmidt.
Any further discussion? Tommy, another question? No?
No, I guess, and they'll continue to work with our local contractors. I know Garney come in there and they work a lot with our local contractors as far as the gravel and the sand and the P-rock, and so it's been definitely a plus for our local contractors, but of course it puts them under some stress because they're unable to do other local projects, but there's a lot of activity around Carrington, let's put it that way. So our motels are full, our restaurants I wish were full, but we have a shortage of staff in most restaurants, so there's some days we don't have a restaurant open in Carrington, which is kind of too bad, but I'm sure you know that. Every community has a shortage of workers, but yeah, the fallout from this construction project is huge for the community of our size.
So I have to check with you if I come up for lunch, whether the restaurant's open.
Yeah, don't come on Monday.
Roll roll call vote, please.
Altough? Schuler?
Yes.
Bonsack?
Yes.
Carlsrud?
Yes?
Erdman?
Yes,
Johnson? Mahoney?
Yes.
Nilsson? Schmaltz? And Schmidt.
Yes.
I should have clarified. I assume that was a motion to issue the notice to award and to proceed for the contract. Thanks. I forgot to say that.
Okay, thank you. That was the motion. Engineer's recommendation, tab D.
I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
The next item, engineer's recommendation, tab D.
You're right. So engineer's recommendations on tab D that walks through the kind of the Black and Veatch evaluation of Karstensen.
Okay,
And then tab E is your notice of award and notice to proceed. That's what you made your motion on, to award the contract to Karstensen. And then just for your information, tab F is the contract that Karstensen would be signing. It's just for your information.
so we'll make the assumption the motion covered all that, basically.
Correct.
That's what you're saying, right, Kip? Okay.
Yep.
So then we go to item 3, transmission pipeline east, contract 5C, update.
Yeah, so contract 5C now would be on the east side of Carrington. That one's roughly 8 miles. Your bid tab summary is on page, if somebody beats me there, let's
Tab G.
G, tab G. So it's September 21st at 2 o'clock, we opened bids for contract 5C. We received 4 bids. You can see them in your bid tab summary on tab G. S.J. Lewis, and on this contract, we asked for an alternate bid price. And we asked for, so the base bid is for 72-inch pipe. The alternate moved it up to a 78-inch pipe. So your first column, base bid, that's for 8 miles, 72-inch pipe. So S.J. Lewis was low at 69 million. Then Oscar Enda was second at 76. Thale was 78, and Harper Brothers was 79. The alternate, so increasing the pipe from a 72 to 78 was roughly $2 million up to $3.7 million. And on your far right hand side of your column is the total cost if you would to put in a 78-inch pipe. S.J. Lewis was the low bid. So they were not pre-qualified through that process that we did this summer. So it's taking us a little bit more time to go through the qualifications, making sure they're a qualified bidder and a responsible bidder. And so once Tammy and Black and Veatch complete that, I hope that we could have a virtual LAWA board meeting to act on that contract. So today, we're not ready to give you a recommendation, but in a week or two, we could have an emergency meeting to act on this contract.
Could we, Tammy, formulate a motion that would cover that? I mean, if you go through your evaluation and they come up yes, can we say we would approve pending you satisfying the,
I think the situation is, there's a question about whether the lowest bidder will qualify. So there's a little bit of an open question that we're looking at. I think you could, if you wanted to avoid a board meeting, if you're not feeling particularly passionate one way or another, you could defer to the Garrison Board, because what we've, as going forward, we always bring these to Lake Agassiz and Garrison. Garrison's meeting next week. We anticipate we'll have all the information we need by the Garrison Board meeting. And so what we thought about is we could have a Lake Agassiz, just a phone meeting, a virtual meeting before or after, or if you wanted to, you could say, we'll just defer to what the Garrison Board chooses to do in this situation. Either way.
John, could you give us a suggested motion so we would not have to have a next meeting?
Yeah. Well, you could, sorry. I would suggest a motion authorizing the Garrison Board to approve the bid consistent with recommendation from engineering and Garrison's legal.
Will somebody first that motion, please? Dave, is there a second? Further discussion?
I guess the question I have, we're going from a 72 to a 78, was what is the engineer, is that what you said, Kip? We're coming off a 72-inch pipe to go to a 78, and we're going closer to the outlet. I guess I just ask an engineering question, why are we increasing the size of the pipe?
Yeah, I don't know if you recall that pipe size presentation we gave. As you travel from McCluskey to Lake Ashtabula, you burn up head. And what we found is if Jamestown, for instance, or Stutsman County doesn't take their full allocation, because I think what we have right now is 20 to 25 CFS going down there, it's highly unlikely they'll take all that. What we found is we would be stranded, and we can't get all that water to Lake Ashtabula. And so to do that, we would need to increase the last few contracts to accomplish that. And then I had a presentation on that where it kind of laid it out. I think it was an extra, I don't remember the cost, but on this contract here, it's an extra 1 to 2 million on this segment, and we would have a couple more segments to go.
Right, so that didn't have anything to do with potentially dumping water into the James River, because there was some conversation about that at one time to get water to Aberdeen, that we could potentially dump some of this water into the James, but this is just because of if Carrington and Stutzman take the water out, we've reduced the CSF, so you need to increase that going to the east then.
Yeah, we don't want to be stranded. We don't want to be able to deliver all that water to Lake Ashtabula.
Right. Okay,
And
thank you.
you guys have said that, that's fine, but that's to some degree, Lake Agassiz is not responsible for the increased capacity. That is over and above the design of the project.
You got it satisfied?
Yep.
Okay, any, John?
Mr. Chair, would there be a willingness to do a friendly amendment to the motion to add in, based upon the recommendation of their council, their engineer, and giving deference to the board, the Garrison Board, in the event that they have to make a decision regarding the qualifications of the engineer, or qualifications of the company?
Who made the first motion?
I did,
Is that
that's what I meant to say.
Whatever he said. Yeah. My seconder, who was my seconder? Okay. He said that. You have those down, right? So they agreed to the amendment? And I hope you wrote it down quick.
I tried to write fast. Motion authorizing the Garrison Diversion Board to approve the bid consistent with the recommendations of engineers and attorney, and giving deference to the Garrison Diversion Board if there are any concerns regarding qualifications.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Altough? Schuler,
Yes.
Bonsack,
Yes.
Karlsruhe,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Johnson. Yes. Mahoney,
Yes.
Nilsson, Schmaltz,
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Good. Land acquisition update, Kip?
Yeah, I just have a couple things. I don't know if Tammy wants to chime in here, but NDOS, we talked about, that's 32 miles long. We are already over 50% on the right of way. So things are just moving right along, just a different take over in Sheridan County. So happy to report that we're over 50%. Tammy, I don't know if we wanted to add anything on other aspects, but that's all I had on that one.
Yeah, I don't think so. Everything's moving forward.
Work plan update?
I do have a report in your book. It's from, I believe, September, so it's a little bit old. Just to let you know, we are continuing design. We're working on operations. Tonight at 6 o'clock, I believe, the Corps of Engineers is having a public meeting on Lake Ashtabula on the water control manual. So we are definitely going to be there, and we're going to let them know that that we've worked well together, and that they have flood operations and protocols, but they do not have drought operations and protocols. For this project to work correctly, we really need them to listen to our concerns and lay out steps on how they should operate that reservoir as a drought. So we'll do that tonight. I believe Steve's going, I'll be going. I'm not sure if anybody else is going, but we'll be there. I don't know if the mayor's going.
I'm not going. I have to go to Sioux Falls, but I did visit with the guys from the Corps, and we have a very caring group of people out there. They're going to look out for us.
They listen to you?
Not necessarily listen to me, but they told me.
So if we have any concerns, we'll go back to you.
The last item maybe I can mention is the 5 rural water systems in the northeast part of the state wrote LAWA a letter, Garrison Diversion letter, kind of asking for some help. We have met a few times with the managers, and also we met with Andrea's group, and we're trying to help the northeast users quantify what they have in their aquifer, which will in turn help them figure out how much water they need to sign up for on this project. And so we're doing what you told us to. We're trying to help them out, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can get some preliminary answers on aquifer volumes up there. Covered a lot of items. Open to any questions.
Trying to wear this group down, eh? Program schedule, Mary?
I'll ask one
Oh, I'm
more.
sorry.
You probably get tired of me asking these questions. In Sheridan County, then, you said on that project where the orange line is, you've had a pretty good response, positive response about land acquisition?
In Sheridan County?
Right.
Yeah, we're doing really well. Yep.
Good. Good.
That's your home country, Tom, right?
Yep. Yeah, they're understandable people. I told the senator and the other individuals here that all the people in Sheridan County are appreciative that you're actually going to do something with this water from the McCluskey Canal, but this reaffirms that they are on board. Thank you.
Mary, you're up.
Kind of what's helping that is that some of the appraisals are coming in. And if you'll remember, the legislature told us to go to 2,200 and we were at 1,350. So far, most of the appraisals that are coming out of Sheridan County and the west end of Wells County are below that 1,350 level. So, they're looking at their appraisal and then so it's helpful.
Right, but that's the way it's always been. As soon as you go from Foster County to Wells, it doesn't rain as much. You go from Wells County to Foster County, it doesn't rain as much. So the farmers don't have as much money to bid each other up on land values. So, but that's always been the history. Foster's high, Wells is fairly high, and Sheridan is kind of like that's where I grew up. And I wonder why our ancestors stopped there, but they did.
Okay, Mary, now you're on.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Tab K is the program schedule. I think that Kip has covered that very well, including earlier. Just in yellow is what we try to highlight for you guys to say what has changed. Kip already said that they're about 50% complete with the pipeline 5B. And then the other highlights are the bidding and the awards for 5C and D, and you already did pass some motions on those. So if there were any questions on the schedule, I would try and answer them or ask Kip for some answers.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if there's none, if you'd like me to move on to the planning level budget, which is tab L in your books. This is our planning level budget. Pretty much since the project started going, I'm going to say that there is nothing in here from the upcoming biennium that we're in for the 23-25 with the total of 240 million, because we haven't signed any of those contracts yet. So as soon as we get that done and all of our funding approved, we will add that. But with everything that we have ongoing, I think I'm just going to kind of go down to the bottom of it. But in the orange for the construction subtotal for everything that we have ongoing projects is at 58% complete. We have a current estimate of 93 million. We have expended 54 million and have roughly 39 million left for the construction projects. For the total program budget, we are at 68% complete of a $138 million project that we have ongoing. We have expended 93.6 million and have outstanding 44.8 million. And like I said, as soon as we sign the contract with the state and with Bank of North Dakota, I will start adding in that other 240 million as they're approved.
Very good. We don't have to approve anything, we're fine.
Nope, nothing on that. I'll come back up for the financials.
Steve Burrian, where are you sitting? Oh, over there. Good. User meeting packet.
So Chairman Mahoney, members of the board, typically when I get up at this point in the board meeting, I just have a few minutes of miscellaneous meetings to report on. And so if you'll indulge me this afternoon, or I don't know, is it right after lunch? This afternoon, I do have a little bit longer presentation today regarding a strategy for user engagement. Before I get started on that, Kip mentioned the water control manual update for Bald Hill Dam. And we're currently in the process of serving as a cooperating agency for the water control manual update for Mud Lake and Lake Traverse down in South Dakota. And the Corps has been very willing to engage with us, and that has interest and importance to us, but because that lake typically dries up during a drought, it's not super critical. But when you work with the Corps of Engineers and you look at their water control manual, that essentially becomes the Bible of how they operate the reservoir. And so as we work through the water control manual update for Bald Hill Dam, it is very critical that we engage. They have a really solid operating procedure for flood control, but their current operating procedure for drought management doesn't address some of the things that we would like to include. So in addition to the public meeting, we will again be a cooperating agency as part of that. And how we've typically done that is we collaborate between Garrison, Fargo, Grand Forks, Moorhead, and Valley City to make sure that all of those entities are kept up to speed on the manual update. And the first cooperating agency meeting is going to be a virtual meeting on Friday at 9 a.m. So I just wanted to let you know that we'll probably be reporting on that pretty regularly now moving forward, given the importance of changing some of the biblical language in that document. As we move into user engagement, then what our goal with your direction is, we understand, is that there's a Series D agreement that's out there to try to get local funding support for the 60 million that we've talked about several times earlier this morning. We understand that you'd like to have the users commit to that as quickly as possible. In addition, there's a draft project participation agreement out there, which is going to be a very voluminous document that's going to ultimately commit users to the project. And it's our understanding that your goal is to try to have as many users signed up by the end of 2024. So as we go into the 25 legislative session, we understand our user base. With that in mind, the Garrison staff team and technical team have put together a strategy for re-engaging the users, and it's going to start with a series of letters, and then from those letters we'll have a series of phone calls and virtual meetings, and then a series of in-person meetings with the idea of re-educating the users, working with the users on any changes they might want to see, answering any questions the user might have on the various documents that are out there, and trying to guide them toward signing a commitment to Series D, as well as signing the project participation agreement by the end of 2024. And so what I'd like to do this afternoon is we do have the 5 proposed meetings in or letters in your packet. Those are proposed to be signed by Mayor Mahoney as your chair. I won't go through this in detail, but I'll go through kind of the big picture part of that. And then we've put a proposed user packet together, and much like the letters, I'll give you the highlights on that. In there is what's called a memorandum of commitment, and that's a new document that's been drafted on your behalf to try to get the users to show good intention towards signing the project participation agreement, as well as commit to Series D. And Tammy Norgard from the Vogel Law Firm was the author of that. And so when I get to that item, I'm going to ask Tammy to step up and present that. And then Series D is that local share contribution for the 60 million. And Sean Gaddy of HWest and HWest Nexus put that together. So when I get to Series D, I'll ask Mr. Gaddy to also step up and present that, given that they're much closer to both of those items. So in the supplemental maroon packet that was handed out, there's a tab U through Y, which is 5 different tabs, and each of those tabs contain a proposed letter from Mayor Mahoney to 5 different groups of users. The first group is the 24 users that signed the development agreement that have stayed engaged in the project, so that's most of you. The next one is those that signed the development agreement but have subsequently declined participation. That would be the City of Wapaton, Barnes Rural Water, and Greater Ramsey Rural Water. And Dwayne, the manager, felt it was very important to reach back out to those users that declined, to give them another chance to reconsider, because technically none of the small users have contributed any capital since the original development agreement. And so those declined users aren't really that far any further behind other than engagement. And so it would be a kind of a low cost chance for them to re-engage. The next letter is for the signed development agreement, but for users that have just kind of quietly discontinued communications. And that would be Central Plains Rural Water. I guess they did send us an email, but we've never seen anything formal. And then the City of Tuttle and the City of Foreman down in southeastern North Dakota would get that letter. And then there's a series of cities out there that are large enough and independent to be meaningful that didn't sign the original development agreement. Examples would be Harvey, New Rockford, Breckenridge, some of those communities. And again, in talking to Dwayne and asking his insight, he thought it made sense to try to reach out to those and give them one more chance to participate. Now, they'd have a little latecomer element associated with that, but we want to get in touch with them, and so they can never say, no, we didn't hear about this, or we didn't know about the project. And so that's the group that letter would go to. And then lastly, Washburn's been brought up at numerous recent meetings, and there's a special letter just for Washburn, given that they're very interested in the project but did not sign the development agreement. And so I don't know that it really pays to go through the letter in too much detail, but basically what we do is we explain that there's a lot of momentum on the project right now. We explain with that momentum that we wanted to re-engage the users. We talk about the legislative success in the last biennium of getting 180 million, but that also requires us to come up with 60 million on the local level. We note the legislative intent for 953 million. And then we explain to them that we've put a process together to reach out to them. The letter will be the first step. Once they get the letter, we're going to contact them to make sure they got it, because I've seen past letters that we've sent out oftentimes don't always get to the right participant in today's world. Whether some accept emails and some think it's going to come by snail mail, and city council processes and board processes. I sent out a letter asking for some information and was surprised how few people got the letter that were supposed to get it. And so we're going to try to make sure that happens. We'll also then prepare them for getting the packet. On the first page of tab U, it does have the list of things that will be in the packet. so that they'll get a sense for what they're going to get. Once they get the packet, we'll reach out to them and go through that virtually with the goal of ultimately getting to that first meeting with them in person. And at that first person meeting, we'd also like to have the memorandum of commitment ready to at least discuss with them. And that's what Tammy Norgard will be going through in a minute. And so each of the letters is a little bit different as it relates to the type of user they are, but this letter has been reviewed extensively by the internal team. It has been reviewed with Mayor Mahoney to make sure he's generally comfortable with it. And then I think it's for information only, but you should expect in the very near future that each of your systems will be getting this letter and the process will begin moving forward. So before I switch over to the packet, are there any questions on the strategy as well as the letter that we're planning to send out?
Any questions? Tammy? Oh, you didn't raise your hand, I'm sorry.
Okay. So that takes us through tabs U, V, W, X, and Y. And so then if we go to tab Z, this is where we did provide you with a sample user packet. And we didn't just take the liberty of using Tom's Community without reaching out to him. We always talk about Fargo. We always talk about Grand Forks at these meetings. And so we decided to just feature somebody a little bit different in this particular meeting. We didn't know Mayor Mahoney was going to pick on Tom during the meeting with Senator Hoven, so he's maybe getting picked on a couple times today. But we did use the city of Carrington for this purpose. Our plan is to send a digital PDF, a searchable PDF of this document, as well as a paper document to the city. And the paper document will be in a binder. It's going to be much thicker than this because we didn't include the draft PPA at this point and its exhibits. And those documents are probably approaching 400 pages when you put all of those documents together. And so rather than just filling up everybody's desk with paper today, and given that that is still getting some final tweaks, we didn't include that in the packet, but we'll send out a PDF and paper copies depending on what user likes to use what approach. And then if you go to page I of that document, there's a table of contents. And what we've put in there is an introduction that reiterates why we're doing all of this and what they're getting as part of the packet. We have a timeline that we put in there that just shows some of the historical elements of the project with an emphasis on wanting to get that memorandum of commitment in early 2024 and that signed project participation agreement at the end of 2024, as well as the goal to complete the project by 2032. For all of those that signed the 2016 development agreement, given how much paper we have given these users, we're going to give them a copy of their signed development agreement so they have that for them. And then as they signed that development agreement, they went through a process of nominating for the domestic supply and nominating for an industrial supply, as well as working through where they thought they wanted that supply to be served for their particular system. We'll have the various maps and documents associated with that there for their reiteration. Back in 2021, we did get out and meet with all of the users. As part of that, A2S Nexus put together a 11 by 17 fold-over financial handout. We'll get that back out to the users. We also had a pretty exhaustive PowerPoint presentation that we went through with each of the users. We'll represent that to them to make sure that they have it. And then as we moved into funding for the local share prior to this biennium, you'll remember that we had a Series A and B, and I believe that was in 19. And then we had a Series C in 2021. The first two were funded exclusively by Grand Forks and Fargo. The Series C was funded by Grand Forks, Fargo, and Garrison. And so we provide that data to them so that they understand how the local shares has been contributed up and through Series D. The next document that we have in there, and I'll get back to Tammy once I get through the rest of the outline, is that draft project memorandum of commitment that she will review. The next one is intended to be the draft project participation agreement. At this point, if you go to the document, it just notes the general headings of that document and what it'll contain, and we don't have the full document at this point in time. We have a summary of the interim Series D for all the users, as well as a breakdown for Carrington, just to give you a description of that, and Sean will go through that. And then ultimately, Sean will also be preparing a Red River Valley Water Supply Project cost summary, or at least he'll take credit for it, and his team will put that together. And that'll also be coming, but that's very dependent on the project participation agreement, so that's not currently in here as either. So maybe at this point, Tammy, if you wanted to go through that project commitment agreement?
Sure, sounds good. So we've called this the memorandum of commitment. I'll tell you that the one that's in the packet has been updated. I think we circulated it to a number of attorneys, like Agassiz attorney, John Shockley, as well as attorneys for Fargo and Grand Forks, just to get their input on the agreement, do any kind of tweaking to it. So if anybody wants the latest draft, let me know. I've got a bunch of copies along today. Otherwise, one of the most current draft will be in the letters that ultimately get sent out. But first of all, you'll be shocked. This is like 3 pages of text, right? Isn't that shocking after your 80-page agreements you've had to look through? And the reason this is so short is because we're not recreating the wheel here at all. What we're doing is that the purpose of this memorandum of commitment is twofold. One is to say it's time for you to sign up for the project if you want to be part of it. And that was at the last Lake Agassiz meeting. We had a conversation, and that's kind of what everyone said. We're ready to take that next step, that people have to decide whether they're in or out. Granted that the PPA isn't quite ready to sign yet, so we're doing the Series D agreement, which is going to be paying for this biennium. And so what we're doing with this agreement is we're saying that, one, you're going to sign Series D, which is going to accompany this document. There's going to be 2 things you have to sign at the same time. One is Series D, where you pay for your percentage of basically the budget for the work plan for the next 2 years. And then the second thing is you're saying, I intend to sign the PPA once it's done. And clearly that's not something that commits you to sign on the dotted line of the PPA once it gets set in front of you. But our thought process in joining the Series D is, if you're going to be paying for a portion of your, whatever this work plan is, of the budget, whatever your portion is of the budget, you're serious about it and you're going to be moving forward as long as the terms are something that you can get behind. So basically, these memorandum of commitments are going to be between Lake Agassiz, Garrison, and your entity individually. It's where you will nominate how many cubic feet per second you're interested in acquiring for the purpose of the PPA. We really need that information now because that's going to help us fine tune the numbers for the actual PPA when you do have to sign on the dotted line long term, because we want to know who's in, who's out, how much water they want, so the financial team can work that out. We're presuming 75-25% cost share, which is as the basis for this, in terms of like that the state's going to pick up 75%, locals are going to pick up 20% plus anything that's not covered by the state if it's not eligible for reimbursement. So of that state share, then what's your percentage of that? That's really what this is going to be committing you to. But largely this is pretty cut and dried and straightforward, because all we're really doing is saying we're committing to sign Series D and we're intending to sign the PPA when it comes out. You're identifying your nomination, and then you're acknowledging that there could be any number of risks, that this could be hung up in litigation, or any kind of federal decision that could change the course of the project. We just put those in there just kind of to have a CYA for everybody that's part of the project. And then we included a contingency saying that this is only going to be enforceable if there's 100 CFS in the aggregate that's signed up for. So otherwise it's, rather than reiterating anything that's in the PPA or Series D, we're just saying, please see PPA and Series D. Any questions?
Any questions? Tom? You've asked questions and everything else. Why would you stop?
You can make me feel bad.
I guess I better turn my mic on. I'm under shell shock. No, I'm not. I guess we've already had these sessions and discussion, and I guess this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Yeah. It would help if we get federal money.
Let me maybe clarify with Tammy's discussion is that you're going to be signing this commitment memorandum and this Series D before you sign the final PPA. And so there is a chance you could be making a change in your nomination in that 1-year education process. And so if you elect to do that, and I'm not sure exactly then if we'll be, recalibrating, Series D as a result of that nomination change. But, it's because you, at the last meeting, directed the group to get going on Series D, we listened, closely to that. But we do understand that some people have had some changes since 2016, which may, lead them to want to increase their nomination or decrease their nomination. And we'll certainly work with the cities and rural water districts to accomplish that. As Tammy then introduced Series D, Sean is prepared to talk about that in a little more detail.
Thanks, Steve. Chairman Mahoney, members of the board. So if you were to look into the packet, I believe it's page 49 of 52 towards the very back end. What we've included to this initial user packet is a breakout of the Series D costs. And as Steve alluded to, the example that was provided here in this packet was for Carrington. So I would suspect Mayor Tom may have more to say after he sees some of these numbers and we present them here. But what we've presented, if you'll recall, Series D, we have currently worked with the legal team, Garrison, Lawa, and the users in looking at a split of Series D. And so we have a Series D-1, as we're calling it, and a Series D-2. The Series D-1, if you were to look at the table on page 49, there's a total of $60 million that we've talked about a couple of times today, related to the local share matching the state's 75% for the total $240 million work plan for this biennium. Series D-1, which has already been routed to Fargo and Grand Forks, essentially covers just short of $49 million of the $60 million you see here. The remainder, $11+ million is what we're talking about for the small users. So we've heard the 18 plus or minus % that's been discussed. What we're really talking about in the Series D-2 through these commitments is to go out and seek that remainder 11+ million for the small users in that D-2 component of the Series D agreement. What we're showing you here is based on the development agreement nominations. And so these are for the users that we had water volume nominations from the development agreement that we've committed and calculated, a preliminary allocation percentage for how that remainder 11 million would break down for those users. Now, as Steve was just mentioning, we may see some movement in those nominations, up or down from certain users. We may see additional users that are added to the mix here. And so, within our allocation model, we do have the ability to shift all of that as it shifts and as we learn more through the process. But as an example of what's provided here, this is the breakout for the current allocation on the development agreement nominations. And on the reverse side here for the city of Carrington, who has agreed to let us use some of their numbers as an illustration, for the city of Carrington's 2.5 CFS nomination, if you were to turn the page to the reverse side of this handout, you would see there, under the way that we have worked with Bank of North Dakota to structure the Series D loan, so for the D-1 loan, what Carrington's repayment obligation would look like for that 2.5 CFS nomination. So in this instance, there were some very key terms that we were able to negotiate with B&D. We've talked about shaped or sculpted debt to this point. We've talked about deferrals that were also provided for. So what we're showing here is the current structure to the D-1 loan applied to the potential D-2 loan terms. So in that case, we have a 2-year deferral. So payments not essentially starting until the year 2026 on what we're committing to now. 3 years interest only on that loan. And then the remainder loan payments growing in a shaped fashion, considering time value of money, user growth, et cetera, as we modeled that. And in that case, we modeled it at a roughly 1.5% annual growth in payment in that. And so if you look at the graphic on the side there for Carrington's example, you can see how we have the deferral period, we have the interest-only period, and then as it grows, we have the shaped debt that comes into effect over time. We would anticipate providing a similar example to all users just for them to get a sense for what they are committing to in the D-2 agreement. And with that, I guess I'd stand for any questions. And Mayor Tom, if you have any questions specific to your numbers, fire away.
No, I guess we had sat down before, but we didn't have the schedule here that shows the graduated payment. And I guess as I turn the second page, it's more palatable than the first page probably, because if you do the amortization and like you said, you've tried to reduce the payments upfront early, and then as time goes on, hopefully you have an industrial user of that water, so that helps supplement it. But, you know, as of today, it's like a rural water hookup. It's there, but you have no users for it, so it's still got to be paid for by some source. And I guess looking at the annual cost, this is all palatable within our economic development funds, so it wouldn't really impact our domestic water users at today's looking at these numbers. So this is good information.
We're done then, or?
So if there are no additional questions for Sean, there's a lot of information in that draft packet. I guess I would be happy to take any sub-tab of that packet and review it or answer any questions you have, but I think the goal today was to more so show you what we'd be getting and not get into all the weeds if not necessary.
Dave Carlsworth?
Refresh me, when will we be expecting these packets?
I would think that if everybody concurs today that the letters can go out, I would think we'd try to get those letters out in the next couple of weeks. And that would put us toward the end of October. And then we do want to make sure that we chat with people, catch up with everybody before they just get the packets. So I would expect sometime in mid to late November, most likely. And then
Thank
the
you.
packets are pretty comprehensive to put together, and there are a couple missing parts and stuff. And so there could be some, we were trying to do the packets in, I think, 8 segments where we've grouped the users together. And so some may get them earlier than others as we just, the reality of getting all the work done between ourselves as the user team, and then there's quite a bit of financial analysis that has to be done by Nexus as well.
Okay, I was just curious, so that when I go to educate people on this, when I could plan my recall, you know.
I think in terms of the in-person meetings, we're targeting the new year for the in-person meetings because we realize that we're running up against the holidays now. And so once those packets got out, we'd continue to network with people, but probably not try to schedule any full board in-person meetings, maybe some virtual ones with management and maybe key leadership. But the full board type meetings or council type meetings or commission type meetings should be for a little bit after the new year, hangover's over, get going on that.
Tom?
So just for further explanation, if you take, like, I'm sitting next to Bill here, they signed up for a half a CSF, we signed up for 2.5. So if you did the math, it would be like $91,000 for a half at Mayville. But just to further explain, the further you go east on the project, the more those communities would invest per CSF, correct?
Yeah, I don't think you could just go proportionally to that one. I think Sean can answer that. But yeah, we tried to make it fair. So if Washburn's just on the intake, we charge them for the intake. If Carrington benefits from the intake and the treatment plant and a part of the pipeline, we charge them for that. And then if you're on the river system, then you would be benefiting from the entire project.
Right, I was aware of that, but I knew Bill and I just did the math here, and I probably needed a little further explanation for anybody east of Carrington's benefit if they start take a simple divide 5 into 455,000. That's 91, but his is 135. Just for clarification purposes for the board members east of Carrington, that's all I've really asked for here.
Yeah, so good question. And as I mentioned, this is based on our current allocation model. And so the current allocation model considers just what Steve mentioned. Where are you geographically located along the length of the project? We're not going to ask a user like Washburn to pay for hundreds of miles of pipe beyond Washburn in just a pure proportional allocation. So we are looking geographically where you're located. And then we are also considering, I'll call it weighting in the costs, where if you have substantial additional infrastructure that you would need to construct, a good example of that would be like Jamestown, where we have another $50+ million pipeline for the size of their nomination to turn that water out to them.
Yep.
The fact that they're not like a Carrington, really close to the pipeline, a little bit easier to access. They've got a lot of additional infrastructure to build. We also have weighting calculations for that type of circumstance within the allocation model to consider, you know, truly what is your benefit relative to someone else, given your geography and additional infrastructure you might need to construct to make use of the water.
And then if I could attempt to confuse you one more step, when we originally did the project, there was the notion of the Beach Ridge pipeline. And so right at Cooperstown, there would be a pipeline that would go north and it would pick up Cooperstown, Mackville, Tri-County, Devil's Lake, Greater Ramsey, and then it would continue to go north and it would pick up Hillsborough, Mayville, East Central, all the way north. Then as we worked through the project for the next year, we got the sense that some of the Northeast users were of the opinion that that Beach Ridge pipeline was probably pie in the sky and was never going to get built. And so then we took that, we still had to get up to Devil's Lake and Ramsey, so we had to go through Cooperstown, Mackville, Tri-County, Greater Ramsey, and Devil's Lake. But when we went to the rest of it, we assumed that they would come off Grand Forks. And I think that's the model that Sean currently has. We call that 2A. And then Paul Boersma and Kip and Paul Boersma, have been working very closely with the consortium of the Northeast users, and they appear to be turning back to potentially looking at the Beach Ridge as their favorite approach. And if we did the Beach Ridge as the favorite approach, it might be more cost effective to serve somebody like Hillsborough and Mayville off of that pipeline again. And so if these numbers change a little bit from the illustration, it's not because we were presenting you with fallacies, it's because there are a lot of complexities on this project, and that's one of them. And Sean had already, and Jacob had already done the whole model using 2B, and so we decided to not return to 2A until we knew that those Northeast users were committed to the Beach Ridge.
That explained it all, Tom?
I believe so. The only other fact maybe it's in here about the operating and maintenance costs once this thing comes online. So I can sit here and look at what Carrington's annual commitment is, but then is it in our packet that I thought we went through some of that, Sean?
So if you-
O&M, did we have some O&M on that?
Not quite in there yet. That's, as Steve talked about, you know, there being further information that we're still filling in the gaps on. When we do go to meet with all of the users, this is the next step, financial picture, Series D. We will have some conversation about E, F, G, you know, to project completion, and then also in consideration of the operation, maintenance, administration, replacement considerations that are all also built into the project financials. And we won't just narrow band look only at this. We will try and give a complete look over the fence as to the total cost of participation.
And that's page 51 in your user packet. It's just all you have right now as a placeholder. We didn't have all the information done yet, but what you're asking for, Tom, everybody wants to know the complete financial picture. We tried to do that in the user handout in 2021. Those are old dollars. That was the state project, not NDOS. It didn't have 2 years deferred. It didn't have 3 years interest only. Lots of changes for the positive have happened. And so in that 2023 handout that Sean and his team puts together, that will be in the user packet, and that will attempt to be a full illustration of the project.
Right. Did we have a tentative number, though, when we met in Carrington, as far as the potential operating and maintenance? I can't remember. I got it in my folder
We probably did, but I don't recall it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think if you go
So-
to,
I think we probably had it on the 2021 values, and that is in here. Yeah. I think that's
you
what we
go to
last showed.
page,
But that
I'm
would
not
have
gonna
been
see page
with the
numbers.
not coming out of the canal. That would have been coming out of the wash.
right after page 16, Tom, in your packet,
Okay.
there should be the four-page 11 by 17 handout. And if you go to the inside, I think you're not far enough back. Page 16.
16 is, okay, the financial handout.
System financial summary, it should say, as the first page after 16.
Okay, after. Okay, yep.
And then the next, if you turn the page, there's the capital costs on the left side of the project, and then there's your costs estimated in 2021 dollars on the right. And so that showed where you were looking at, 20s in your other analysis, this was showing a baseline of 122 all in back in 2021 dollars.
And
And that includes that includes all the Series D capital. It includes O&M and administrative, and then it includes some small reserves for the parts of the project that might wear out prematurely. There was a bigger reserve in there at one point, and the city of Fargo maintained that we were paying debt on the project twice, essentially by approaching it that way, and so the big reserves don't kick in until later in the project.
And what I would point out is, since this 2021 summary was put together, clearly
Right, and
there's
this
been
is
changes.
actually coming out of Washburn instead of coming out of the canal.
Yeah, so this is the full Red River
Right.
Valley project, correct?
Right.
And so that has impacts to both the capital cost as well as the operating cost. We've had some good things happen since 2021, and we've had some bad things that happened. To start with the bad, we've clearly had inflation, right?
Awful inflation.
Awful inflation. And so, what we're seeing in benefits from NDAWs relative to 2021 construction values, some of that's muted by the inflation. But we do have the good things we've been able to work with B&D on the debt and the shaping, deferrals, interest-only considerations in the debt. We have the lower cost of the NDAWs project relative to the full state project. And then fleeting thought there.
Well, the one thing, though, we heard Senator Hoven today, and that would be speculative at this point. And so I don't think the 2023 handout will include any federal funding. But if we did get federal funding, understand that would just give the capital costs a significant haircut.
Very good. Mary, can you leave contact information for a consultant? So if some of the people want to contact them or get information, they could have that, to send that out to them, please? Yeah, and I'll thank you for the discussion. Any other questions, the group now? Tom, no tough questions now. Thank you. Mary, can we go on to the budget analysis statement, tab M, please? Steve, good job. I'm glad you didn't predict the UND game, but. I know where your bias is.
I'm not getting in that one. So if you would turn to tab M, please, that is Lake Agassiz Water Authority's budget analysis, and it's from the beginning of the year through September 30th. So the income budget is $610 million. As of September 30th, there has been income of $305,000, remaining budget of $304,000. Total expense budget is $680,000. Lake Agassiz has total expenses of $354,000 to date, remaining $325,000. So to start the year, the beginning bank balance for Lake Agassiz was $498,000. With your income received, that means that there was total funds available of $803,000. With all of the checks that have been written and listed there, that comes to $354,000 with an ending bank balance of $448,000. And then the bills paid since your last meeting are starting on tab N, and that's the board's insurance policy, Lake Agassiz Water Authority's cost share for Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck, our DC consultants, and then the cost share for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project.
So I need a motion to approve both M and N.
Tab M, please.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Schmaltz and
Roll call vote, please.
Altough? Yes. Schuler? He might not be with us anymore. Bonesack?
Yes.
Carlsford?
Yes.
Was that Schuler? I thought-
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Erdman?
Yes.
Johnson? Yes. Mahoney?
Yes.
Nilsson? Schmaltz? Yes. And Schmidt?
Yes. Very good. Anything else, Mary?
That's everything that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We had a meeting with Lieutenant Governor on the Washburn project, and Kip and I were there with Bruce Grubb. which went very well. They would like to proceed with Washburn intake at their area. It's about a $7 million project. We are pursuing FEMA grant, and if we get the FEMA grant, we qualify for it. We've been working with it. They won't hear about it till next June or July. But in talking to the mayor, he's willing for us to go ahead, Kip, with design part of this and get it all teed up for bid next spring. Rainbow is part of the discussion. The difference for you to understand, if they do the Rainbow, the cost goes from 7 million to about 130 million. And I wasn't willing to commit 130 million of our money for Rainbow. That would be a different funding that they would have to go after in my mind. But the issue in Washburn is when the river is down, they're literally pumping water into their intake to have it work. That's not a good, reliable way to get through the winter or get through anything. So it appears to me that they're very happy to go ahead with us to try to work a project for next year. So, and Lieutenant Governor was very happy with that, and then the FEMA pursuit was looking good. Bruce, anything else on that? No. So that's where we got with that. We feel that they're, Kip, wouldn't you say, a partner with us now? They're pleased with what's going on? Okay. And just a footnote, I remember sitting in a meeting similar to this with the diversion project, and with Senator Hovind and other senators. We had a lot of people in the room, and heard this commitment to get federal funding for us. And I always remember I turned to Denny Wallaker and I said, "What do you think? You know, we think this will go through. This sounds like a good idea. It's going to happen." And Denny goes, 60%. So he was not optimistic. I was optimistic, but very pleased with what we heard today. And I think if federal money gets into this, it's a game changer for local costs. I think it's something we will pursue to the utmost of what we can do. And I think this is the opening pitch basically to this project. I was very pleased with what we heard from our commissioner. She's very committed to try to make this happen. And the other thing, Mary reminds me, we're having a leadership session next week on Tuesday. And that's a group just to make us work as a dynamic team more and better. I think we are doing a good job. I thank you really all for showing up today. That it's always, if you show up, that really counts. So that really worked well today. But at the leadership meeting, Mary, you say we're going to learn how to work better. No? Kim, we're going to work better.
Together.
Together, okay, that's it. No singing involved, right?
No singing, no trust falls, nothing like that. So.
Okay, I was kind of wanting to see Dwayne on one of those ropes to see. Now, we do have restaurants in Valley City open?
I wouldn't hold my breath. Unless you want a beer, you know, then we get sandwiches and beer.
Okay.
No problem. Anytime we can get those.
But this is beginning a new part of our journey, and I just think it'd be worthwhile for us to attend and get the value out of that. But we recently had something in the city of Fargo and found out our different characteristics. So it was nice for us to know that the police chief always thinks he's right, and if you don't agree, it doesn't matter. So we learned some things we didn't want to know, so that was kind of good. So I think we'll adjourn the meeting now unless there's any other comments or questions. Tom, do you want the last word?
No, just clarify what you just said about a leadership meeting. Am I missing an email or something? Am I invited to something that I don't know about, or
Mary?
do I?
Yep.
If, we did kind of select certain members based on their leadership positions, and so if you were part of that list, you would have received an email. So if you haven't gotten anything, Tom, I don't believe you were on that list. So.
I didn't hear you, so I'm not invited?
You're not on that list.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
fine. Probably don't want me
But you
there.
would have come if you would. Thank you.
Well, we're looking forward to having you in Valley City, whether or not we have a restaurant open.
I'm hearing the mayor is going
We'll
to
get
pull
food for you.
out the red carpet.